You ready? Okay. I call to order the Keystone Heights City Council Workshop. Today's date is Monday, December 12th. It is at least 2:05 p.m. Ms. Rakowski, would you like to call roll, please?
Mayor Lake,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hart,
Here.
Councilman Bobby Brown,
Here.
Councilman Tony Brown,
Here.
Councilwoman Thompson.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank
Though
you.
This is a workshop.
Thank you. Are there any public comment cards?
I have two regarding item number 2. So first is Mr. David Kirkland.
Mr. Kirkland, would you like to come up to the podium and state your name and your address for the record, please?
Good afternoon, Council. I'm David Kirkland. My residence is 7266 Southeast 2nd Place, Stark, Florida. I'm here on behalf of the Keystone Heights Airport Authority and wanted to request council support for legislative funding, for a legislative funding request that I plan to make at the Clay Legislative Delegation meeting next week. And so that's the main item, getting water and sewer at the airport. We've been discussing that. There's a feasibility study that's being completed. So we're going to make that request and would like the council's support.
Do you have a number?
A dollar amount?
Your dollar amount?
Not yet. The feasibility study hasn't been completed.
Well, I think that's so important to the airport, of course, and to the city and to the community as a whole. I don't see why we would not support you in that.
Thank you.
So would you like a consensus? We can't make a decision, but we can build consensus today for that effort.
I'm sorry, say again?
Okay, let's build consensus for this, okay? Although we can't make a decision, we can build consensus and show support for the airport if we're supportive of their ask for water and sewer. Is there?
I think it's something we've been looking at for years, and now that the pipe is closer to the airport, it might not cost as much to do something like that. But I think with tying in with Clay Utilities is going to benefit that airport even more and open a lot more opportunities for growth.
Mr. Brown?
I agree.
Okay, Ms. Thompson, Mr. Hart?
100% agree with what Tony said.
Okay, we're all behind you, all 5.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
We'll cheer you on at the Clay delegation meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Rakowski?
Next public comment is Miss Vivian James.
Ms. James, would you like to do the same? Could you state your name and your address for the record?
Vivian Katz James, 6579 Immokalee Road, Keystone Heights, Florida. I'm coming also begging for money, and I don't know how much yet. Save Our Lakes organization, along with LRDC, are in the process of working with the city somewhat, the county, the water district. We've already met with the water district, working with our county commissioner. And what we're looking at, what I'm calling it, is the Geneva project. And basically what this is going to do is we're going to be seeking removal of vegetation and trees in Keystone, in Geneva, hopefully prior to the water flow from Brooklyn to Geneva. What that means, basically, construction should be completed on Black Creek the fall of 2024. So during that time, we want to be working on Geneva. Depending on the elevation of Brooklyn at the time that the project starts, they're suggesting that it's a 7.5 million gallons a day coming into Brooklyn. With the history that we've had with a project several years back, where we had a flow similar to that coming in from when they lowered, if y'all remember, when they lowered Lowry, Brooklyn came up at least more than 10 feet. I think about 15 feet in a year. So right now, Brooklyn is at somewhere around 107. Okay, so
6.2
something, yeah,
right.
somewhere around there. So if the project were flowing today, Brooklyn would be filling and flowing into Geneva, into Little Lake Keystone and Geneva within a year. So we know that we're going to have to get involved with Florida DEP and others to get permitting and that sort of thing. We're going to have some sort of mapping of the lake to see at what elevations there are issues with vegetation. So we're on the beginning of that. We've had one meeting. We know that we want to do this for the community. So I am asking for your support at the legislative delegation meeting. We will be asking, I'm not sure how much, but we will be asking, and then we will be, going to Tallahassee for anything that we can get from them. So
can we build consensus? Any questions first to Ms. James?
Just an observation, Black Creek's going to go online in the fall of 2024, a couple years from now.
Yep.
And that would be at the tail end of hurricane season, so we may not have the luxury of a year. You may have
Exactly.
almost no luxury.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's something that's got to get done.
Yeah. That's what we
soon.
figured. While the construction's going,
Yeah,
this needs to happen.
yeah.
And it's a benefit regionally, but it's definitely a benefit to this community and to the county, but this city in particular.
Well, I'm
So-
thinking too of submerged hazards. If somebody's out there boating with a lot of
Yeah.
water and they don't see a snag, they're
Right.
going to get hurt. So
When they set the MFLs, whenever that was, a couple of years ago, they had, I forget how many, 5 or 10 criteria to decide, where the MFL needed to be. And the top of that list was recreation. So if we're going to actually have recreation here, we need to get rid of the trees in particular. It would be nice also to get rid of as much, quote, vegetation, especially the foreign vegetation, as we can. The difference in something like Geneva and other lakes and places, the fact that there's been overpumping for so many years, okay, what would have been a normal lake bed with normal vegetation is no more. And so we may have some issues to deal with at that point in time, saying what shouldn't be removed. But certainly the trees and as much vegetation as we can, so.
the state of Florida, of course, owns the lake bed. What arrangements do you have to make, would we have to make with the state to get permission to do all this? Or would we need permission?
That, I'm going to say that is in question right now, as that's a question that we don't have answered yet. We have had discussion with a few folks from DEP, and we've had, actually Solo had a member who bought some property on Geneva, and there were some trees on it. And before he bought it, he needed to know, could he take the trees out? Because otherwise it would not have been of value to him. So he really did a lot of legwork and came up with some interesting information that I think the high water mark, okay, has not really been redefined in decades. And so there may be some issues there to actually figure out what is the high water mark, what does the state own, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to take every bit of the 2 years that we've got.
You're going to be dealing with a separate trust that actually is in charge of that, not just the state itself, but there's a separate trust that's been created. It's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. You will-
Help us
you
out.
will-
Any knowledge you have,
You
help
will
us
be,
out.
I'm sure.
I live on Lake Geneva,
Okay.
and in my backyard and in my neighbor's yard, there are poles from a long-lost dock,
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
poles.
Same thing. Yeah.
And they go down towards the lake. I
Right.
mean, what's gonna, and there's trees everywhere.
Right.
So,
And that's trees and old docks. I mean, one of our members went out several years ago and just for his own information toured Geneva and took pictures of just the old docks. And it was amazing how much is out there. And so all of that's going to have to be addressed. So they were saying that Geneva would take another year to 2 years once water started flowing. But anyway, so we have time, but we don't have time to waste, I guess that's what I'm saying. So for every legislative delegation, that we can make an ask and maybe, get some help. And we don't know what the cost is going to be yet, but it's got to be done, so.
We're not going to vote on this today, but I would suggest we have a resolution saying as a matter of public policy, this is good, even though we don't own the land, and even though a lot of it's not going to be contiguous with the city, it's going to benefit the city.
Right.
I think we need something on record at a later date.
Absolutely. And that'll come in time, so I believe that there's, the steps for both of these projects, the legislative they want project ready. So both of these projects will be project ready by the time that we get to our ask, or priorities ask, or appropriations ask. So with that, then we will be able to adopt a resolution for both projects, that we're ready, we have a dollar amount, and we need assistance from whatever agency, it's gonna be DEO, DEP, FWC, to move forward.
So a question for you, Ms. Rakowski. I know we've talked in the past, at least council has talked about the creek piece from Clay Electric that runs down into Little Lake Geneva, and how the Army Corps of Engineers may need to be brought in order to rectify the erosion through that water body. So is this going to be a part of all of that to fix it?
It's part of the chain.
It'll be part of the chain we'll be addressing that, I think, through a different study. That's going to be a different ask entirely with a different pot of money. So FWC will get involved with, and DEP will get involved with the vegetation cleared out, but there's the erosion occurs on private property. So we've got some other things that we need to take care of, and we've had conversations with the Water Management District and moving forward what that means to the project itself. The Water Management District has walked that. They do not see an impediment project, that it's not going to obstruct the flow.
It's
but
not
there will
going
be,
to, are we going to be liable for any water damage that happens after more water comes through that creek and it's on private property?
so those are conversations that we'll have to have with Mr. Commando. So we can set up some time to do that.
Okay. Any other questions, Ms.?
Yep.
Go ahead.
How about protected wildlife, gophers? I mean, it's just been let go. There's all kinds of things that could come up. There might be state trees or something. I don't know.
I would assume that maybe I shouldn't assume. I don't know what wildlife is out there right now that needs to be protected. I'm sure that if we
tree with an eagle, anything.
Yeah, right.
Anything could come up.
And if we run into that, I'm sure we will have to answer that. I would venture to say that we might get a lot more wildlife back when the water's back and trees and it's back to what it was supposed to be. What we're trying to do in the long run, basically, because the Black Creek project at this point in time would stop for only two, when I say the flow, would stop for only two reasons. One is when Lake Brooklyn reaches 114 elevation, to allow for a rain event so that it would not go into Geneva. The other is if there is not enough excess flow coming into Black Creek to take some of the excess. So way back, whatever, a year or so ago when this started, I said, the Etna chain goes, it's on into Geneva on out. So the reality is it should flow all the way out. And so let's not stop it at Brooklyn, let's move it on. And I think the district has every intention, or had every intention of doing that as a separate project. Had they mixed it in with the Black Creek project at the time, it would have brought the price up to a point that they were concerned about getting funding. Well, you can already see what's happened to the price anyway. But, so that was going to be a second thing. So they will be involved in this because now they want the stop to be in Geneva at some point until wherever it goes next. I forget the
Hutchinson.
Oldfield.
It's a field, I think, isn't it?
Oldfield.
Oldfield
Yeah.
Pond, I think it is. Yeah. So any impediments there, they will be working on, on down the line. But I didn't think it should, Geneva suffered enough. I thought it really just needed to move on. So we've been kind of pressing that in every meeting that we can press it. And the district is now on board with this. So it's a matter of who does what and, so.
So will this project also incorporate, when we talk about Geneva, and I remember hearing stories about way back in the day when you had rainfall every afternoon at 3 o'clock and the water bodies were all connected. You could get up on a ski and go through 7 water bodies. And are you talking about reconnecting all of those water bodies that used to be part of Geneva?
What I'm talking about specifically is the Atenaya chain, which starts in Camp Blanding, runs all the way down through Geneva and on to Oldfield Pond. Other water bodies, I would, with the Floridan aquifer, which is underneath us, with that being, the pressure being up to a higher level, it's been drawn down over the years due to overpumping. That will be up now, and it will hold water more in all of the lakes. So as far
So
as,
my question then would be, while the water's been down,
right,
these water bodies aren't connected because there have been trees growing up in between the bodies.
right.
Will this also incorporate those smaller water bodies and reducing the number of trees there so that when the water comes back up, you could see all 7 bodies again?
So we're talking about bodies of Geneva.
Yes.
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 The answer is yes. That's what we're trying to accomplish, to get, I mean, you got forest out there now.
Yes, you do. Between the little bodies, there are forests now.
Right.
And I remember living on one of the little bodies and, wrong or not wrong, somebody was trying to keep the two together. There may have been a little bit of off-site digging, just
Right.
a little bit.
There's
Um,
been
but,
some in lots of places. Yeah.
You know, and then we got white sandy beaches that aren't supposed to be tilled, but they're beautiful, you know, so, but anyway, there's 7 bodies, and I was just making sure we were talking about the
We are.
entire system, not
That is-
just the big lake.
That is the ultimate gain, effort in this. Because to me, Geneva is Geneva, it's all of it. So getting rid of the trees for safety's sake and everything else. We should be able to, it should be back to what it was. And, with normal drawdowns, with seasonal dry weather, droughts, whatever, but not the constant that it has been for decades. So I
So-
appreciate your support.
Oh, I apologize.
Ms. Murkowski?
So to add on to that, the conversation is that with the MFLs being what they're going to be on Lake Geneva, and then when Geneva's at capacity, when this project does what it's supposed to do, and then water comes into Geneva, what that high mark is going to be, look at where the water is going to be at and remove the vegetation so it doesn't impede connectivity, and that we don't end up killing vegetation through overhydration and causing issues within our waterways that for boaters, for recreation, and then also as that vegetation decomposes, that it's not going to affect the quality of water that we
Right.
have in our lake. So it would be removing all of that prior to and allowing that natural connectivity to happen.
Yeah.
There are structures that have been built. I mean, houses like on stilts. So what happens? I mean, that's that on private property on Lake Geneva.
Well, if you build in a flood zone,
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
It's been so long since
And that's
the
true.
lakes have been on.
Yeah, that's true. And
I
so-
don't know. I don't know the people that own it because they rent. I don't know the owners of the property, but the people that are living there now, they use it for a storage building, but it will be in the flood zone
Yeah,
because it's close to the water line now.
yeah.
My concern is once this thing gets going, you don't want any obstacles, you want to keep on going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There is a state law and common law that says that once you have a drawdown for a certain period of time, then the state can basically deed the new area over to the property owners. I would be very doubtful that they went through that process, so it's their assumption of risk as far as I'm concerned. It might be.
That house has been there and I don't know about the structure because I have only lived there 10 years. I lived over by the school for a long time.
It's like building a house next to an airport and then complaining of the
Yeah.
noise.
well,
Or
we may,
Camp Landing.
yeah, we may run into things, I don't know. I don't know,
Yeah.
but, the bottom line is, all of those lobes that you're talking about, Mayor, should be connected. And
Yes.
that's our effort.
Mr. Brown?
I would say this council and previous councils have always pretty much been behind anything to benefit our lakes.
Yes,
And it's nice to go across that bridge right now and see the water and where it's at right now, and knowing that in the next few years, it's gonna be even more.
Better.
And looking at Lake Geneva and seeing the condition it is in, and it's nothing anybody could do, it's just nature. Trees are gonna grow, but they're growing in where the lake used to be. And with the water coming in, I wanna see the 4th of July again, having little boat races
Yeah.
and stuff that we used to have. And one of the biggest things is that I still call it the white elephant, but it's the boat ramp down here on 100.
Right.
As a kid, if you drive down there, we used to swim on this side of that boat ramp because that's where the lake was that far up. And then you had the boats going in, but it's like a lagoon right now. And that's, that should be something, should be a focus on getting that cleared out, because that's all trees. And,
Yeah.
but right on the other side of those trees is the lake, the main lake. So I look forward to, and I'm pretty sure this council and councils on down the line will always support our water.
Yeah. So to that effect, do we have a 5-0 consensus
Oh,
that
yeah.
will support
Oh, yeah.
whatever
Yes.
they propose?
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vivian.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Rakowski?
So if there is any additional conversation for any additional priorities that you'd like to have in front of the delegation Monday, next Monday on the 19th at Clay County, then now would be the appropriate time to have those conversations. I'll tell you that staff strongly supports both of these projects and have worked with both Ms. Vivian and Mr. Kirkland in the airport on both of these projects.
Okay. No, I think I don't know of any other legislative ask at this point.
This should be our main focus right here. Right here should be our main focus.
Well, that and the storm sewer, and we've talked about that affecting Brooklyn too.
So I will say this, that the TPO will be conducting a study come the beginning of next calendar year, still in this fiscal year of FDOT, on 21 and 100. We've seen some of the surveyor markers and some of those counters that have already happened. After we receive that study back, then we can discuss the mast arms. But again, it's the project ready. It's that tangible evidence that these things are needed, this infrastructure is needed. We've had great conversations with our parks, and we'll be producing a plan to move forward in January for our parks and what that's going to mean, so we can get those action items taken care of and in place. These two action items will have a plan, a concrete plan, to be able to present to our delegation to move forward this coming year.
Vivian, I
So-
would assume that the senators, Bradley, are probably in back of it, backing this up. Have you had conversations?
I haven't had big conversations with him, but I would be shocked.
Yeah, I would be too.
So are you saying that you'll have your project defined and a clear cost associated with that project by Monday, or this is just something you're working on for this legislative year?
It'll be for this legislative year. We've worked with both of these agencies. Monday is just in form of this is what we're going to be asking for. We should have those projects fine-tuned by the time the appropriations requests are due,
Okay.
prior to session starting.
Okay.
And we're at 30,000 feet right now, aren't we?
We are.
Okay. Anything else before they go to the order? Seeing none?